taboo.
Welcome everyone, here we are again. Welcome to Revenue Hacks, Industry Game Changer, weekly live show by Rise Up. Every Wednesday we try to touch the key subjects of our industry, and I think one of our colleagues is facing a few IT issues, may we say. This is what live shows are great about. But what we really want to do is try to simplify the complicated matters, or admittedly, possibly solve a Wi-Fi connection today. My name is Custodio, I'm a new host, and here today we want to discuss always forward planning of the hospitality industry, a key topic for us. What I will do is introduce our host for today, Thibaut Catala from Catala Consulting. We've got Eric Bucci from Nolan and Sylvia Cantarella, if my voice
it's hard
today. So welcome everyone. Thibaut, if I can have a few introductions from you today as well, a little bit what you do, because you've got a new project and we heard a little bit in a previous session, but really would like to know a bit more.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Thibaut. I'm the founder of Catala Consulting, an outsourced revenue management company based in the UK, looking after hotels across Europe. And the new project, I'm also the co-founder and the COO of Vertel Asset Management, an investment firm and as well management company based in Switzerland. We're looking after hotels in Switzerland, and we're looking to acquire more hotels. And more importantly, we are currently working on creating a new brand, a new lifestyle brand, which I'm actually quite excited to show you in the next few months. So stay tuned, and I will show you around.
We're all looking to book those in due course. And our own revenue acrobat in-house, Sylvia, a quick introduction from yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So my name is Sylvia Cantarella. I've been working in revenue management for 18 years. Most of my time I've been spent in hotel chains. And over the past 5 years, I've been working in independent hotels. And I have a little consultancy firm called the Revenue Acrobats, where we give revenue management and commercial strategy consulting alone with a team of people working with me.
Welcome today. Erica, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erika Bucci, and I'm in the industry for over 20 years now. Spent 12 years in hotels, mainly in meetings and events, sales and revenue roles. And for the last close to 8 years in technology. So, and for the last almost 4 years with Nolan. And we provide business intelligence to hotels.
Welcome. Today's topic, we really want to showcase to our listeners the forward planning of our industry, the teamwork. I think all of us come from different operational as well as commercial backgrounds within the industry. But I think many of the listeners to our own show and to others within hospitality don't realize that we're always 3, 6, 9 months ahead within our industry. From Valentine's Day, we start planning Easter. From Easter, we start thinking about Christmas menus and so on. And I think the concept that you literally are ordering kilos of turkey in summer where everyone is enjoying the beach is a strange concept unless you work in hospitality. It becomes your day-to-day life. What really want to focus on, and I'm going to literally come to you, Thibaut, first, because you just mentioned a new project. I cannot imagine what you're going through from my short experience on new openings, but how much forward planning and let's say organization are you going through right now? I guess sleepless nights maybe just a very light way of describing it, of course, but if we could have a summary, let's say someone who's coming into industry, they want to invest in the industry, how far ahead do they need to look straight away instead of just looking through the door? Great hotel, I think I'll buy this one, but what next is facing them?
Well, I think it's applicable for the hospitality industry, but as well for everything in life. I don't remember who told me this and which mentor told me this, but if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail.
Right.
So that's super important to make sure you plan and you look ahead because you cannot create a new brand, create a new hotel from one day to another. And you have so many small things that you need to consider. And it's so easy to miss anything on your way to creating the new brand that you need to look at, okay, what's my vision? Okay, I need to have a new building, a new brand in 1 year. I need to reopen by December. What needs to happen between today until this reopening, until I can reopen and have the new brands and everything ready. So you can build your Gantt charts with all the milestones that you are building on, new brand, new name, new concept, new values, making sure the corridor are up to standard, the fire exit are so you have so many things. So in a way, if you don't plan ahead, you will go crazy. So I think like and that's what I'm saying, like in the hospitality industry, it's even more important. But in anything in life, of course you need to be in the present, but you also need to see where you are going. What is your vision, and all the steps and milestones to get through it. Because if you don't have any target and vision, you don't know if you're going on the right direction or not. So yeah, that's super important.
No, totally. I think prepping for any day life. I've worked in a couple of industries, and without prepping, you don't stay alive in some of them, to be fair. And in others, you obviously need it to do so. But I'm going to go to Sylvia here, because one of the first things that she mentioned to me as soon as we discussed this topic was task lists, but also selling the idea to others, because obviously the hospitality industry, you never work in alone. Doesn't matter, even if you're not managing anyone or if you're just a member of a department in the back office, you never working alone. It's always a teamwork. So the great thing about it is, how do you sell that idea? And Sylvia, you've mentioned your consultancy element, but I'm sure from your past experience, let's say you've done very nice, you've done all your planning, you've got all your tasks ready. Now selling that idea, selling that revenue strategy as an example to others internally, how important is that?
It's crucial. For me, planning goes together with learning post-pandemic. So while before the pandemic, we used to, let's take a little very easy example. We have recurring events coming every year, like you mentioned in the presentation of this live, New Year's Eve, let's say. So before pandemic, we said, okay, so we plan one New Year's Eve, like 6-10 months in advance, but we know exactly what is going to happen. Post-pandemic, this has changed. So trends have changed, people have changed, customer habits have changed. So it's really important for me now that we start planning ahead with the teams to work on a learning curve. So once we close an event, once we close an happening, when we close a fair, a season, just take a moment to sit down together with your team, open the cards and discuss together what happened, what changed, what went well, what not, and based on that, adjust a strategy for the next year, for the next event, whatever it is, because this is a continuous evolution. So we cannot work on copy and paste anymore. So it's really important and crucial for me to find a moment where we discuss together, also because we as revenue managers are planners by definition. We love task lists and to-do lists, but sometimes we might miss what's happening in the field. So the operational side of it, people that are in contact with the client every day. So we really need to find that moment to just sit down, take a moment and plan, even if it's for next year, because it's closer than we think, especially now. That's really, we are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and our customers are planning. So we need to be one step forward.
No, I definitely agree. Eric, I'm going to go to you for a question, because obviously planning data, as Sylvia just mentioned, but I think one of the things we've seen is everyone's talking about, yeah, the industry's coming back. We've gone back. Let's look at the data pre-COVID. But are we really ignoring 2.5 years, 2 years of key data that's sitting around where, I don't know, even the luxury market had to rearrange itself to deliver the same service? Is it right? Is it wrong to ignore that data that's sitting there for the last 2 years just because it was a pandemic?
Yeah, I think this is definitely maybe the worry of many of the hotels, that, oh, probably there is, first of all, no data there to look at, which isn't true. I'm sure that we all agree that there are sources that did provide us data throughout the pandemic, whether it was STR or any other intelligence, or even what I'm dealing with. But in terms of the feeling that, oh, it was just a constant change and there was no value in that particular data, is, in my opinion, probably not the right way to look at it, because I think we can learn from any data and from any information that we can get our hands on. And I think, we had to change our strategy so many times during the pandemic. Of course, almost every week, every other week, no matter what part of the industry anyone was working in, had to pivot. And I hate that word by now, but it's true, isn't it? So it was constant change. But I think we can learn from it. We see a lot of, trends that we captured in the last 2 years, for example, even at Noland, that is truly showing, how different now, for example, the behavior of our clients is. And knowing that, and actually planning with that in mind, whether it's a marketing department, whether it's a revenue department, sales, or any other operational department in a hotel, I think it's crucial. It's like feeder markets, how much they changed, or even the segments and the industries, how they are producing, and who is really out there booking. A lot of hotels used, I think, assumptions in the past, even pre-pandemic. And I think it's important now to look at options to make it like a validated data rather than just assumptions and experience that we all have in the industry.
I think behavior change before and after the pandemic, and that's why people are saying like, oh, we should completely disregard the historical data. But you still have, as you mentioned, some similar patterns. So even some small ones that you may not recognize, but for sure you have some similarities before and after. And I've seen a lot of hotels who are saying like, yeah, but in the past we went after the Chinese market, we went after the US market because they were very strong in Greece or whatever. Well, maybe now is not, but in the future will come back. So it's also very important to keep the historical data to explain the future. But I also understand why people are trying to recreate the data set from post-pandemic because the behavior and everything changed. But still, keep an eye on what happened 5-10 years ago because it may explain some pattern that you see today. Yeah, that's very important to keep a look at historical and future data as well.
I think that's one of the comments that one of our listeners, Dylan, just mentioned is how far back things are now being repeated in some actions. But one of the things a lot, and I think a client of mine mentioned something to me last week, which I never thought of, the psychological aspect of travel and why is driving the data. And he meant that by saying that during the pandemic, everyone sat at home locked away, but suddenly you start longing to relive some of your key moments in travel as a business and leisure travel. And suddenly that's why those actions are being repeated. And then the data gets repeated of those actions. And this, the domino effect of all of that, according to events and so on. Data, skill set, the industry. Everyone looks at the hospitality as a reactive industry. A guest arrives, asks for a meal, and I think Sylvia will reconnect very shortly. I think she's facing some IT issues, our listeners. But one of the key things was, are we really a reactive industry? I think, and I'd really like you guys to answer that because, and I'm going to get to Erica on this one, go back to Erica, because I know the venues you've managed from the meetings and events. I know a little bit, obviously, the lifestyle brand that T was in, but definitely the venues that you managed. The kind of proactiveness attached that is needed for the skill set and the life skills, which Thibaut touched earlier, for anyone coming into the industry, especially right now, the resourcefulness. I'd really like you to summarize a little bit of that for our listeners.
I think it's probably one of the main skills that I was always how can I say focusing on when it came to the meetings and events side, but in general in hospitality is definitely determination, because we have to be so determined to reach our goals. We always face challenges, no matter whether it's 2008, 9, now with the pandemic. So I think to have that kind of positive mindset and be able to always overcome these challenges and find creative ways of actually doing business, or keeping a team motivated, or making money, that's whatever the goal is. But I think the biggest challenge what I'm seeing now, that the pandemic made us even more reactive because of how last minute the changes were. And a lot of the hotels I'm talking to and the teams I'm talking to, they are actually saying that, they don't have time, of course, they don't have manpower. So they are just doing whatever they have to do on the day. And I think that is a huge risk. So, if I now think, let's say, with an ownership or a management company or whatever, kind of leadership hat on, I would be very scared what the future brings, even in 3 or 6 months' time, let alone maybe in 18 months' time for my properties, if my team is just living day to day. So yes, I think, the leadership has to have, hopefully, that kind of guidance from above. And then, the team has to have, of course, certain skills, and not just, like we discussed, the hard skills, the knowledge and the experience of the industry, but actually have those soft skills and be able to drive things forward and plan ahead, no matter what challenges they are facing on a day-to-day.
No,
If I may add one thing, sorry.
Please.
Yeah.
No, please, Sylvia.
Link to this, if I may add one thing, when we talk indeed about planning, and it's a good point, the fact that we're talking about staff shortage and the fact that we live in day-to-day in order to survive sometimes. So planning for me and for us should also involve the fact that now that we are dealing, all of us, with this situation of problem with staffing, staff shortage and everything, we really need to plan on how to, and try to work on how to improve the processes, make the process leaner, involve technology in order to facilitate the life of our staff and especially our operational members, because that's also part, I think, of a strategy. The strategy is not just about running and driving numbers, it's also about, making sure that we have a proper team working and we're working efficiently. So that's a very important part, I think, of our job. And that's something that we didn't have to do in the past before pandemic, but now it's part of our daily activities, unfortunately, at least for me.
You're literally reading my mind, and that's what I was about to comment. It was actually a question to Thibault, because I can see where he's sitting at the moment and he's nicely relaxed, but how much automation and working with your supplier partners are you considering for your new venture? Because, and this is a very much a bit of a personal question, and obviously we don't want any secrets, because I'm sure there are competitors, listeners, they say, but you and I have crossed paths in the past, we've met at events, and we've always chatted about the element of supplies and technology, but how much more is now important to you in your current project, what Sylvia just mentioned?
I think it's key. It's definitely key, and technology, and again, I keep repeating myself on this one, but technology is not on purpose not to replace anyone, but to extend your
Correct.
team. And I think that's very important to see the difference between people saying like, yeah, I don't have any staff, so I'm going to automate everything and have all the technology and the AI do the job. It's not true. Keep your team, but extend what they can do with the technology. Maybe with some outsourced support in finance, in revenue management, everything that's in backend, you can extend your team with those kind of support as well. Like just looking at the planning and forward looking. Just this morning, my team had a discussion with a new client, and those guys, they are so much focused on the day-to-day that they can do the pricing and the restriction and the strategy for 1 month ahead, but they are missing the 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years in advance, while the firm may have been announced yesterday and they already sold out. So having those kind of support, technology first, as well as revenue management support, anything that can look for you for the next year, 2 years in advance. Because in revenue management, for example, the performance of tonight, like the check-in and check-out of tonight, your performance tonight, was something we prepared 2 years ago. And every day we prepare everything in advance 1 year, 2 years ago. It's not something like you have a new revenue manager and the next day, wow, thank you so much, revenue manager, that you did a great performance. Not true. It's a 1 year in advance, which we build on a daily basis. So again, to answer your question, it's critical to make sure you leverage technology as much as you can. You plan forward with your supplier because of inflation, because of raising costs, because of everything, and you plan for the future. Again, I will come back to this one, but if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. That's very important.
No, I think for me, from my operational days, technology was always to assist to bring humanity into it, to allow the staff to be human again to the guest. Because technology should allow you the time that you suffer from not having, not take away any more time or take away staff members and your colleagues, should be the other way around, like you mentioned. The other element I think is very key here is, I think the adjustment that Erica mentioned, what's taken place, you're constantly changing. As much as you plan, you have to be always so ready for that constant change that your plan will be out the window. I'm sure a revenue strategy that Sylvia created a few years ago now changes every month instead of every 3-6 months, like you just mentioned. And I think those are the skill sets, the human skill sets that the industry can bring to anyone coming into the industry from many walk of life, in fact. And I think you're never bored. You're always doing 3-4 things at once, if not more. Especially the wonderful night shift for any of us who spend time in operations. You do a bit more, you juggle. But one of the key things that's it's very much a talking point is having everything at your fingertips. Is there a danger of having too much information at your fingertips and you forget what you're there to do? To anyone at all? I'll let you guys pick that one. Whoever, everyone is nodding in sync here on my side of the camera. So I'm going to go with Sylvia on this one. Is there too much data available sometimes? Can that also become an enemy?
There's lots of data available, but there's lots of technology that helps us to read that data. So that's exactly the point when we say, let's leverage the technology that we have there in order to filter. And I say, do the dirty job for us, because we don't have to waste that much time trying to, connect all the dots, understand what the trends, the data. We can use technology to just translate it for us. And so we can eliminate non-value-add activities and concentrate on the strategy. So that's my answer. And I think it's really the point that we need to move towards. We need to go to that direction to make our life easier, guys. It's not about replacing us. It's about making our life easier.
I think the challenge is that people always think about data as big Excel spreadsheets. So, and nowadays, technology is so much more advanced. You have really good dashboards and, snapshots that you just bring up one screen. It's visual, it's easy, for anyone to read, no matter if you are, analytically minded or not. So, and I think technology understands that very well, that, they try to make it more accessible for everyone, no matter what your skill set. So that you just need to, have a quick look and then make your assumptions. I think, the fear is in many people who maybe don't have those analytical skills, but it doesn't mean that they can't understand once it's presented to them in a different format. And I think, they should hopefully lose that fear and start engaging more the data points that way.
I agree. And I think it's actually having too much data sometimes can be quite dangerous. Because it's for me, it's all about how you read the data and what you do with the data. And if you give too much data to some people who don't know how to read the data, they will go in all directions and say, "Oh, that's crazy," and they will go like completely at the opposite where they should go. So sometimes it's better to have less data, but making sure you do the right action based on the data. Or if people understand and know more, to have more data. And that's why a lot of tech systems have actually this kind of option to have different dashboards and to have different granularity of data for ownership, like a one line at the bottom line, for example. And then revenue manager with a full granularity of data because it's important. And then in between for the GM, but just like to adapt the amount of data that you share with your public and the different audience that you have in front. I think it's very important because too much data can actually be quite dangerous for your hotel as well.
No, definitely. From that particular point, I've done something recently on a specific project before I even joined this job. Was about the data warehouses of these larger groups and even smaller groups. Everyone's creating their own data warehouse. Are you really looking at it correctly? Are you using it to get you those deals from capital projects, expenditures, all the way up to buying a kilo of chicken breasts? Really knowing all of that to the right person at your fingertips. Is your procurement manager enabled to know the trends of the prices of what you've been buying, or is he just approving POs on the go? Is your revenue team knowing exactly what your competitors are booking around the corner and why they're booking the little events, the local and global aspect of your own operational? Because, and I'm sure, Thibaut, you've mentioned us, you've got the project in Switzerland at the moment, which fluctuates very much between the local leisure market, business market, all the way to the international during high season, which suddenly Switzerland is flooded over winter, as we well know, and now even in the summer. I read an article, which I'm hoping you'll benefit from. As a friend, I say this with hand on heart, the extreme sports market that suddenly Switzerland is open its market for, which hadn't so in the past. It's that kind of awareness. And I think sometimes the operators or the larger brands have all of this data. What are they doing with it? Are they helping the economy? The hospitality industry can also benefit so many people outside of it from the information and data that it gathers. We know when people travel. We know where they are from different nationalities. I mean, all of us spend our time in aeroplanes. I know that you and Sylvia were in Milan recently in an event discussing a similar topic to what we are here discussing today, which we've had some amazing feedback from. But tell me one thing, how much is the local government, and I'm saying this to you, Thibaut, you've got your new project. Has the local government been in touch to what you're doing to see what you can do to the local economy and how you can support it with the planning of your project?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this kind of thing, it's also an attraction to the city and to the country. because having some new products, renovated products, maybe new brands is actually quite a big attraction, not only for the hotel, but for the destination itself. And definitely we need to work hand in hand with the government locally. But in terms of data, as you may know, the big cities are actually quite easy to collect data, past data, as well as forward-looking data, like London, Paris, and so on. That's quite easy because everyone is sharing the data with STR, with MKG, and everything, and they can create some nice aggregated data. In the Swiss mountain or somewhere somewhere a bit more remote is a bit more complicated, or different culture or different countries like maybe Greece, Spain, and so on. That's maybe a bit more complicated because there's not this culture of sharing the data with everyone. That's not as easy to collect data and to have data to benchmark your performance or to see what type of trend you can get. But definitely we see this kind of new movement of people trying to have more data and more insight on the behavior of the market. And I believe governments start to embrace this kind of thing and try to give back as much data as we can, as we need, to support the local economy. We look at ESTA, we look at STR, of course, but you look at the tourism data office and so on. They share a lot of data. And for anyone listening, try to collect those data. They are publicly available online. And look at, I don't know, Greece tourism or Switzerland tourism, and you look at data statistics, you will find a lot of things. You need to be able to do a bit of cleaning and analytics behind, but if you know where to look at, you can get quite a good insight.
Definitely. I'm going to come to you, Sylvia, because there's one key market that everyone tends to forget is the little private hotelier who hasn't got maybe available the resources of the larger brands. When you educate a revenue manager in your project, how much of that process or how long do you spend with a revenue manager going through? You need to keep an eye on what Thibaut exactly saying, your local tourist office, your local events, your RSS feeds, and so forth. How much of that do you dedicate to telling someone, keep an eye on what's happening on your doorstep?
Yeah, that's a big part of my job because it's about education and coaching. So what I see happening for independent hotels, what they really need is actually education and understanding what kind of data they need and how to read and interpret that data. And this also goes back to what we're saying about having lots of data, but getting lost in reading too much and getting confused about that. It's all about, teaching and coaching. So it's a constantly, learning process for them. And I would say, yeah, that's a big part of what I do actually. Once they get it, I think then and I understand it, it opens up to a new world of opportunities for them. And then little by little, they are able to move forward by themselves and understand they don't need our support anymore because they can read the data. But that's the big part of the job that we have to do as a consultant.
I'm going to finish with you, and thank you very much, Sylvia. I'm going to finish with you, Erica, on a closing point for today. Your company, let's say data, it's its bread and butter to a certain extent. But how have you seen data change, but also the planning of reading that data and using it for that future trigger point to make sure that you have your correct sales team activated to go after the right events and make sure you don't miss when they come around next?
I think, it's a complete re-education, just like Sylvia mentioned earlier, not just on a hotel level, but, different department levels as well. And no matter if it's a large or small hotel, because I think, so many things changed for the world as a whole, which of course has a major impact to our industry. And it is also continuing now with potential food shortage and everything else. So I think we will have to ride a few storms still, and we need to keep, focusing on multiple things to be able to survive and be successful. And I think that's where, when it comes to planning as such, being strategic, being proactive is key, and to also be creative in a way to try to find different potential clients or source of income in a hotel. And I think a lot of properties or a lot of markets actually really embraced it in the last few years due to what was happening. But I also see many hotels saying, oh, now we just go back to what it used to be in 2019, and they think that business the same way will return. I think being very open-minded and standing on a lot of different feet building a lot of local relationships and also regional and of course international, but building more relationships is probably the biggest takeaway I would give from a data point of view, and also because I think that once you have those relationships and also, like I said, on multiple levels and multiple layers, then you will be able to always reach out to any of those relationships that are relevant at the time of need. So that would be my potential kind of advice.
Okay, well, I think we all need to be a superhero. I think we are the kind of Hulks of the industry, keeping the grip on everything all at once and trying to really ensuring that we don't lose that grip. I'm going to close up for today and say thank you very much. I think anyone listening today could see not only the impact of hospitality industry in the local economy, international, global economy, the learning, the teachings, as well as being prepared for anything at any moment. I can only wish all of you good luck. Thank you very much for participating. To all our listeners, tune in next week. We've got a very special episode. We're going to be interviewing our founder. Miss Varga is going to be on the show on a one-to-one interview. So you can all learn where it all began and see where the future will take us. Thank you very much for everyone. Revenue Hacks is available on every podcast channel, Spotify, Apple, Google, and of course on YouTube. But do not forget, log into WeRiseUp.com, in fact. Make sure you create a profile. Keep an eye on us. There's a lot of data available on there and connections to be made. Thanks again. Enjoy your Wednesday. See you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.